right, where did we leave off on some?
Number 4.
Number 4. All right, here's the deal. I'm not in this classroom, please put that away. Someone tell me why point of view is important. We're going to go through the next, let's see, probably the next 4 examples, then I'll have you guys do this individually. But first, let's establish why point of view is so important. Any ideas? Raise your hand. Yeah, right.
Lets you know what you're reading about.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, lets you know, you read about. What else? Amira. Yes, to help you better understand the story. Smile.
Let you know whose point of view the story is coming from.
Okay, why is that important? Why is knowing where the story is coming from so important? Michael.
So you won't get confused when you're reading the story?
Okay. Let's think about this for a minute. Has anyone ever been to the American South? Down like Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, South Carolina? Okay. Well, has anyone ever gone to school down there? First of all, Demi, where were you?
I was a kid.
Okay, but where were you? Guys,
Oh!
guys,
Well, my top of the school.
what state were you in? Okay, all right, and how old were you when you were there? 4, okay, so a little before was probably. There are some schools that teach about an event in American history, U.S. history. It's called the War of Northern Aggression.
I heard it.
Anyone ever heard of the War of Northern Aggression?
No.
Okay. Do we know anything about it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a war. What do you think happened in this war? Michael?
There was aggression in the north.
There was aggression in the north. So, yeah, these northerners came down and they were upset at the people in the American South. Why were they so upset? What was the deal?
Probably because they still had slavery in the South.
Okay, so do we know this conflict by another name?
Miss Teague?
Miss Teague is in the computer lab.
Okay, Mr. Texan, do you have Carl Davis?
Is Carl?
He's not here.
He is absent today.
He's absent today?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, so do we know this conflict by a different name?
The person. I know.
Mike?
Wait, no, that's probably not a good answer.
Ryan?
The Great Depression.
No.
Wait. Was it the Great Depression?
No.
What?
It was a war. Have you ever heard of the...
Revolutionary?
Not the Revolution. Have you ever heard
That
of...
was the Great Depression.
Guys, have you ever heard of the U.S. Civil War?
Who haven't heard?
I'll say that.
Oh, the Civil War?
Yeah. Do you know what the Civil War is?
Yeah.
Okay. In some schools in the South, not throughout the South, but there are schools in the United States that don't call it the Civil War. They call it the War of Northern Aggression. Now, keep in mind that that is a matter of point of view. Okay? So they don't really see it as something good that happened in certain schools. They might look at it as the Union being belligerent and trying to tell them what to do. Keep in mind that that is not every school in the South. Many schools do teach it as the Civil War. But the reason that point of view is important is because I just showed you one example where, by saying the War of Northern Aggression, no one knew what I was talking about. And some of you even thought that the Northerners were just being unnecessarily aggressive. We know what the Civil War was about.
Mostly.
Not really.
We do. We absolutely know what it was about, why it was started. And, so that is why point of view is important. Because depending on who's telling the story, you might get a very different, I'm sorry, that's my Dexcom. You might get a very different understanding or takeaway from something that affects a lot of people. Okay? Let me go into a different example. Do you think that the American Revolutionary War, do you think that was a pretty big deal?
Yes.
Yes.
Why?
Because it helped America gain its independence.
Right, it helped America gain its independence. It established this country that we all live in. Did you know that in the UK, again, this is just in certain schools, they don't really teach it as this great victory won by the United States of America against the British Empire. Do you know how they teach it?
As a loss.
They don't really even teach it as a military defeat. And keep in mind, this is not every school, this is certain schools.
They might teach it as in like anger or say that we're bad or something.
What they say in some schools, according to my British friends, is that they teach it more as just they decided that they weren't as interested in having colonies anymore. So they had a military presence, but they did not really commit to it. At any rate, they were the British Empire. They were running a third of the world at that point, and they were busy fighting France. So they didn't really have time to really concentrate on the colonies. To us, of course, it's our revolution. It's what established the United States. And of course, we won some great victories against the most powerful army in the world. But it's all a matter of perspective. That's why this is so important. Civil War, War of Northern Aggression. American Revolution versus just letting some colonies do their own thing. It's very important how you present something. And didn't we see in the poem the other day, where from top to bottom to top, we changed the meaning completely. Okay. So keep that in mind. Now let's go through the next 4 examples, and we'll see. I think you guys understand this pretty well, but let's just do them together. Okay? Someone to read number 4, please. Someone, keep getting the same people. Let's have someone new. John, can you read number 4, please?
At the pizza place, Tony the baker was getting the pizzas ready for baking. He flattened out a ball of dough into a large pancake and tossed it in the air. He spread the tomato sauce on it, sprinkled it with cheese, and shoved it in the oven. Then the telephone rang. A fellow from the factory wants a large pizza delivered in a hurry, Tony's wife called. Okay, I'll get my coat, said Tony.
Okay, so what's the perspective here? What's the point of view? Yeah, Dan. Third person, excellent. And do you know what type of third person? Oh yeah, he. Well, that's correct. Yeah, he. So we know it's the third person. And who can help her out? What type of third person? Yeah. Objective. Excellent. Okay. Third person objective, and we know that because we don't really see their thoughts or feelings, right? It's just the story as it happens. Okay. Number 5. Someone quiet. Let's see. Talia, can you read number 5 for us? Nice and loud, please. Agreed.
Always carry a list of emergency phone numbers for your pay, and know where the nearest phone is. You should also have a first aid kit, and you might want to take a first aid kit.
Bless you. Okay, so, yeah, Amir, what's the point of view here? Second person. How do we know that? Does usually you, and you are also. Okay, number 6.
assume the woman remembered what she had been doing and came back to the cup.
Okay. What do we have here? Robert. Okay, so third person omniscience. Okay, or omniscience. Why do you think it's third person omniscience? Say it again. He gave
two things he was thinking.
two things he was thinking of. Who was thinking it?
Ojo.
Ojo. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? Any? Okay. So if you have one character who's thinking multiple thoughts, is that still third person limited, or is that third person omniscient? Okay. All right. Now remember, guys, when we have third person limited, that's just one character with all their thoughts and feelings. It doesn't matter how many different thoughts they have, as long as it's traced back to one person, it's still limited. You do something to.
I thought it was more close.
You're right. It's if there's just one character who's thinking a lot. Let's say there are 3 or 4 different sentences where that's all describing the thoughts of one character. Is that limited or omniscient? It's limited. Okay. Omniscient would be thoughts for multiple characters, 2 or more. Remember our definition up here? Omniscient. The thoughts and feelings of 2 or more characters. So, do you know what the word omnipotent means? Okay, it means like all-seeing, all-seeing, all-knowing. So when we say omniscience, that means that we see everything. As the reader, we know everything that the author knows, everything that the characters know, and probably more. So, and there sometimes in literature there are advantages to writing in such a way that the reader does know more than the characters. Sometimes there are advantages in writing in a way that the audience or the readers know exactly the same as what the characters know. Can you think of an example where it might be more useful to have the reader know more than the characters? Can you think of an example where it would be good if the reader knew more than what the characters know in a story? What I'm trying to ask is the difference between objective and third-person omniscience is that the characters, the readers know more than third-person omniscient. Okay? Why would an author want to write that way? Why wouldn't they just all go to objective all the time? Michael?
To make the story more interesting instead of like boring.
It could make a story a little more interesting, sure. Anyone else? Okay, well, yeah, sometimes by knowing the different motives of characters, you can create what's known as a 3-dimensional character. Now, this is a pretty advanced concept. They teach this more in high school than in middle school, so if you guys get this, you're a little ahead of the curve. But a 3-dimensional character is someone who changes and progresses over the course of a story. That's opposed to a static character that just stays the same throughout. So can you think of any examples of a 3-dimensional character? Yeah.
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter is a great example. Anyone else? Okay, well, yeah.
You mean that 3-dimensional, you mean like different personality?
It's not so much, their personality could evolve, sure, but it's more showing the depth and the process of maturity.
So what you mean is, a 3-dimensional character is a character that changes over the story?
Yeah, and shows some sort of development. Okay, so like, for example, at the beginning of the first Harry Potter, you have this guy who's He doesn't know about his wizard abilities. He's just a normal kid. By the end, you know, he's this hero. He's a very powerful wizard. He's made a lot of friends. He's journeyed into this entirely new world, and so a lot happens. If you guys have read Chronicles of Narnia, or you know, if you've seen like The Golden Compass, those are all examples of, you know, children who become very well-developed three-dimensional characters. Can we think of any examples where it might not be good if the reader knows more than the characters?
When you already know, like, no.
Sure, Animal Farm could be an example. Yeah. Heaven?
You said when the reader doesn't know more than the characters, probably to like build up the suspense in the story.
Exactly, to build up the suspense. So anytime we have like a mystery novel, maybe like Sherlock Holmes or an Agatha Christie, or, you know, I mean, I'm not sure what you guys have been reading, but any mystery novel, you don't want to give away too much, right? The whole point of the novel there is to kind of keep the reader guessing and lead them on. And maybe you throw a twist in there, so you try and intentionally mislead them. That doesn't work if they all know, you know, everything. If they know the motives of the villains, if they know the motives of, you know, every single person in that story. Sometimes it's better to keep that hidden. Okay, so that was 7. Let's move on. Do you think we can do, let's do the next 3 or 4. Let's do the next 4 on our own, individually. Real quick though, give me a thumbs up if this is easy. Give me a thumbs down if this is really confusing, and give me one of these if it's kind of okay. All right. So yeah. All right. Well, do your best on the next 4, and I will come around starting with you. And Demetrius, why don't you come up closer to me? So what's not making sense, or what needs further clarification? Okay. With all of them, or just one particular?
Oh, I know, it's like conclusions and stuff like that.
Yeah. So the difference between the 3 types of third person is that in third person objective, you just get whatever happens, and the author doesn't give you anything else, no thoughts or no feelings of any of the characters. With limited, the author is going to write in what maybe one character was thinking. So remember the example we used where we have a student and a teacher. In objective, it's just the student, the teacher going back and forth. In limited, we get a little more insight into what the student is thinking. Why don't we try to do, which is this number 8 together, and tell me what you get out of that.
That's second person.
Okay, yeah, second person, that's pretty easy. Let's try, yeah, number 9 is good. I'll come back to you, Kemi. Let me just make sure that my guys over here are okay. All right, so how are you guys doing? What's unclear? What needs a little bit more clarification? You understand first person? Okay. You know that's the chart over there. That's I, me, us, we. Second person, you, your. So it's all with third person. There's a little confusion over third person. Okay, so let's see another way of explaining this. Let's think about if let's say you were doing an assignment, okay, and you were working with your tutor, okay. So Derek and Amarian are Marian's the tutor, Derek's the student. Okay. So Derek is struggling through, I don't know, a math problem or something. And Amarian in the story tries to help him, but internally he's thinking, man, I don't know how I can explain it in any other way. This is just so easy for me. What's that an example of? Limited. And why is that limited?
Because only telling one character thoughts.
Now, does Derek know what Amarian's thinking? No. Okay, and keep in mind, as readers, we're the guys just kind of watching this happen. It works in movies too. And so if I were watching you guys on the silver screen, that's what would be going on. Now let's take that one step further. So let's say that Amarian is a little frustrated because he can't really explain, calculus or whatever you guys are working on, geometry, to his student. And his student, meanwhile, is thinking about basketball practice after school. He's thinking, I really don't care about any of this. I just want to go, be there for my teammates and support my team. If he's thinking that, and we know that as readers, while Amarian is thinking about his struggles as a tutor, what is that? Which example would that be? Uh-huh. And how do we pronounce this word? Omniscient. Okay. All right. So, and why do we know that? Why is that the case?
Because two characters, we know what two characters are thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. And now let's say that we introduce another character in there, Sebastian, who was reading a Magna book in the middle of class, or whatever that is. All right. Well, put that away, please. Let's say he was focused on, some TV show, and we knew that he was focusing on that. Which one would that be? Now you have three people with their three different thoughts and feelings.
And it will still be omniscient.
Exactly. Okay. Doesn't matter how many people. We could keep going on to 4, 5, 6, 10, 20, 30, 40 people, as long as we know, what each character is feeling, then it's omniscient. And I should clarify, we don't need to know what every character is thinking, but if the reader's telling us, about the different thoughts and feelings of multiple characters, we know it's omniscient. There will be some cases where they tell us maybe what the thoughts and feelings of 3 characters are, but there might be 8 or 9 characters in that scene. It's still omniscient, as long as there's 2 or more. Okay? So why don't you guys try and do number 9 without conferring with each other, because number 9 is a very good example. And let me go back to Kemi and then Umair. I'll be with you in a second. Did we get number?
Third person. That's the only good question I can use.
Okay. So let's take a look. We have Maria's lips twitched understanding. She expected Mrs. Rachel to say this. She had known the sight of Matthew jaunting off so unaccountably. These characters.
Yes. No.
No? Look at the second sentence here.
Yeah, that's a feeling. Sorry.
Okay. So, but why do we know that it's a feeling? And it's fine.
Because the word expected was there.
Let's say that we were in the room with Maria and with Mrs. Rachel. Would we know that Maria was expecting Mrs. Rachel to say something?
Yeah, no.
We wouldn't, really. But we know it now as readers because that's what the author is giving to us. Now take a look down to the last line. It was unsupposable that Marie was making fun of her, but Mrs. Rachel was almost forced to suppose her. What's that showing us? Is that a thought or feeling? It's a feeling, right, and who's feeling it? Is it me?
Oh, just Rachel.
Mhm. Right, so you have a feeling from Mrs. Rachel. Up here you have a feeling from who? Okay, so so a thought or feeling for two or more characters, right? Who are the two characters? Uh-huh, good. All right. That's a tough one. Why don't you keep going with number 10? Let me go check on a few other people. Oh, okay, yeah. That's good. One thing, guys, when you're doing this, when it is third person anything, I want you to write third person up in the first line and then whatever it is, either third person objective, third person limited, third person omniscient. Because the second line, you're naming the character or characters that had these thoughts or feelings, okay? So, why don't we try doing that again? Any questions about that?
If it's objective, you don't write anything.
Correct. So with objective, since we don't have any thoughts or feelings, either just write down again that it's objective or just write no thoughts or feelings. Alright. So yeah, that goes on the first line. And then what's the answer to the second one then? What is it asking? Mrs. Rachel. Does that make sense? Alright, well, we're gonna go over these answers as a class. Let me just, again, you need to, write down the second. But then you need to answer the second question. So because third person limited, what does that mean? That means someone to be thinking or feeling a thought. So do you know what this says here? Yeah. Okay, well, can you answer that question? Who? Alice, right? Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, so then you need to do number 11 too, right? Okay, I'll come back to you guys. Yeah, Jotham and Xavier, how are you guys? Confused, okay. Okay, you're done? Okay, let's take a look. What are you confused about? Okay. All right, so, you know, let's do this. I think there are a few people still confused about the third person, so let's go ahead and review it. Amir, do you have a question? You can ask it if you want. Okay. You know, let's hold up a second. Don't worry about whether or not you have the answers correct. I care more about if we're all on the same page getting this concept down. With objective, I want someone from this section besides Mariam to answer this. What is the difference between third person objective and third person limited? Xavier.
The difference is objective doesn't show anybody's feelings and it doesn't get into detail. It just shows the events in the story. And limited shows the thoughts and feelings of one person.
You got it. Okay. So it sounds like you have you understand that well. Do you know the difference between limited and omniscient? Third person limited and third person omniscient. Okay. So third person limited, someone in this section, I'm sorry, Omari, go ahead.
Third person limited only shows the thoughts and feelings of one person, when omniscient shows the thoughts of more than
more than one person. Does that make sense, everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So again, what if you have 3 different sentences where they're showing how one character thinks?
Still limited.
Limited. What if you have a paragraph showing one thought, but one thought of 4 different characters? Omniscient, okay? So with omniscient, we're counting the number of characters we know. This is just a very easy or basic way to think about it. Another way to think about it is if you were just all seeing and all knowing, would you know, would your knowledge stop at just one character?
No.
No, you would know what all the characters would feel. You would know exactly what the author knows. Okay? What else could we do to solidify these concepts? Do you want another example, or do you want to do a few more together? Okay, let's do a few more, all right? So we left off on number 8, I believe. Yes, okay, so who can read number 8 for us? Yeah, have it, go ahead.
Once you have your grill assembled, the next thing to decide is weather. The grill puts out a lot of heat, so you should position it several feet away from the side of the house or any plants or shrubbery. You'll have an easier time with a spot that is sheltered from the wind. When positioning a grill on a wooden deck, remember the sparks and live embers will fall from the charcoal grill.
Okay, so what do we have going on here? Jaquim?
Second person.
Second person, excellent. And how do we know that? Amira? Using you and your. Okay, good. Any questions on number 8? Does the next question apply?
No.
No. If this is third person, which character's thoughts are revealed? Doesn't apply because it's not third person. We don't care. Number 9. Kim?
Marila's lips twitched understandingly. She had expected Mrs. Rachel to say this. She had known that the sight of Matthew
Jaunting.
off so unaccountably would be too much for her neighbor's courtesy. If Marilla had said that Matthew had gone to Bright River to meet a kangaroo from Australia, Mrs. Rachel could not have been more astonished. She was actually quiet for 5 seconds. It was impossible that Marilla was making fun of her, but Mrs. Rachel was almost forced to suppose it.
It was unsupposable that Maria was making fun of her. Okay? So, what do we have here? What's this example? Who hasn't answered in the last? Xavier, did you answer? Romaire, let's go. Third person what? Third person limited? Okay, this is a tough example. Does anyone have a different answer? Okay, Kalia. Objective. Okay, Amaria. Omniscient? Okay, this is third person omniscient. I think this is where we're getting confused. Okay, quiet down. Amir is gonna explain why briefly.
Okay, because most of it, Marilla was thinking, but, like in the last sentence, it says, Mrs. Rachel almost flushed.
Well, let's look at the clues, okay? Where does it tell us? This is number 9, okay? So, we're looking for thoughts and feelings of different characters. Does anyone have any textual evidence of where it says Maria's or Marilla's thoughts? Any evidence of her thoughts? Yes.
She had expected.
She had expected. Good. Is that a thought or a feeling?
A feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. She was expecting something. Now, if you're expecting something, is that something that we could just tell by looking at you? Well, yeah, probably not. But not really. If I was standing here waiting for a package or something, and I was having, you might be able to tell that I'm impatient Maybe you might be able to tell that I'm waiting for something from, checking the watch or something. But you wouldn't necessarily know that I'm, expecting, or what I'm expecting. So this is giving us some insight into what she's thinking. Okay? And who is that? That is Marilla. Okay? Let's find some more examples. What else? Yeah, Kim.
Mrs. Rachel was out almost 14.
Okay, yeah. All right, so we also have was almost forced to suppose it. And who is that? That's Mrs. Rachel. Okay. So there we have two characters, right?
Right.
So there is your case for omission. Two or more characters. Now keep in mind, look at this here. It's the fourth line. We're not going already, are we? Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Thank you guys. Keep these, turn them in to be on Monday. And